Oh hi. Today we're going to demystify and play with the Make Noise Tempi. Whoa. One, two, three, 4 times faster, please. One, two, three, 4 times faster. Introduction. So the Make Noise Tempi is a 6-channel master clock source, but it has a kind of unique sort of tap tempo programming methodology and some other tricks, which you might find very useful in a live performance scenario or just chillaxing at home. Tempi, in effect, is both a clock divider and a clock multiplier in one. The core methodology is you just plug in and you tap. And whenever I tap twice on a channel, it's going to run at that rate. Like that. So you can very quickly change the rates with taps, literally just by tapping twice on the corresponding button for whichever channel you want to program. But there's a lot more besides. Tempi allows you to fine-tune and speed up and slow down these clocks in various ways that we're going to look at. And then once you've kind of got states of clocks, you can save them. You can actually save up to 64 states in the machine, and those are arranged into 4 different banks, 4 banks of 16. And you can actually then jump between those states that you've set up, the kind of scenarios of clocks, using gates or using voltages. So you can kind of quite intuitively set these up. You can trim and you can speed and slow down all your clocks. Then you can save them. Then you can jump between those saved states with a CV or gates. You can also flip and mutate states for all kinds of jumbled up random joy. There are 2 different ways to program it. Mode 1, human mode. So what Make Noise refer to as human mode programming in this is what we were doing before, where we tap at the tempo we want the channels to run at, and with 2 taps, they run at that tempo. Okay, cool. But of course we have 6 channels, so let's get a channel 2 on the go. And I will plug in another tip-top, the 1. Oh, heck. So you can hear there are 2 sounds. First, our kind of little ponk sound, which is getting lost by this bass drum. So we have 2 sounds going on, and we can program at the same time, or we can speed one up, or slow it down. Like this. One very quick thing, I've actually got the Tempi set up so that the speed that I set channel 1 to determines the overall tempo of the Tempi. You can change that, that's just how I prefer to set it up. Or you can actually just chuck an external clock into the tempo input and it will just merrily run at whatever external tempo you've got going on. So just by tapping, it runs at different rates. And I've set it up so that it is quantizing my taps. You can change that and take away the quantization, but I like quantization. So you see multiple channels and we're tap tempoing to run them at different rates. All very well and good. But there is another way. Programming mode 2. Machine programming. So what they call machine programming in the manual works a little bit differently to what we were just doing, human programming, but it's extremely smart when you get the hang of it. So what we're doing in machine programming is the same thing that you would get on a clock divider and a multiplier, where you would say, I want this clock divider to run at 4 times the speed of the master clock, or perhaps I might want the clock divider to work at 4 times slower than the master clock. But on the Tempi, we do it with kind of key combos. So currently, I've got everything muted. And I'm going to unmute, and we hear what we were doing before. So this channel 1 is running at our kind of base rate, But let's say that I want channel 2 to run 2 times faster than our base rate. What I do to do that is I hold B and I tap on the channel I want to run as a multiplier with the amount of taps that correspond to the number of multiplications I want, which is a way of saying if I hold B to do a multiplication again, and I tap 1, 2, 3, 4 times and let go, like that. And perhaps I hold A because I want it to run half speed, 1, 2, 3, 4 taps on A, let go. So what I was doing there is you hold A to go slower, and you hold B to go faster. So imagine A to go slower, left to go slower, B, right to go faster. And by holding that button and then tapping the channel while you're holding that button, the corresponding channel out with the corresponding amount of times faster or slower you want it to go, then it will run accordingly faster or slower. It's actually pretty slick when you get the hang of it, because it then becomes very intuitive as a way of getting the thing to do its thing. And what I'm going to do is get some hats, because that's an opportunity for some faster rates, I'd say, wouldn't you say? So here is channel 3 doing some hats, and I'm going to hold B to go multiplier, and I'm going to hold B and I'm going to tap 1, 2, 3 times. So now channel 3 is running 3 times the base rate. Channel 2 was twice as slow, and channel 1 is kind of set at using human programming. And we can just tap and slow it all down. The cool thing here is that we can actually, if we've got more than one set of hands, you could hold B and you can program multiple channels at once. 2, 3. You don't have to just program one channel at once. A, 1, 2. Just like this. So it's very quick and straightforward to kind of just pick stuff and pick the rates. Tap in with the human mode if we like, or use this machine programming to program specific multiplications and divisions. There is another thing you can do, a very cool keystroke, if you just want to increment or decrement the speed. Say I want it to go 1 step faster. I can hold the channel and just tap B to go faster by 1, or A to go slower by 1. So I just slow this hat down. So I'm nudging it down. I don't necessarily know what speed I want it to go. I just want to nudge it 1 setting slower, 1 setting slower, 1 setting slower. And accordingly, you can do the same thing by holding another channel and nudging B. Or I could hold 2 and nudge B as well. So I can speed nudge up and down channels one at a time or multiples at a time. Hold B to go faster, 1, 2. Slower by 3. And once again, if I want to mute channels, I tap A, and with A lit up, I just touch the channel I want to mute. The muted channel goes red to say that it has been muted, and I can just listen to the results. Glorious, isn't it? Now, an interesting thing here is you can actually divide and multiply by up to 32 times. And that might beg a question, which is, are you really going to say to me that I have to tap 32 times to go 32 times faster or slower? Because that's a lot of tapping. And I would agree with you and say quite reasonably that's too much to ask, and you're not going to do that because there is a shortcut, so you don't have to do that. Shortcut works like this. So if I hold B and tap 1, 2 times to go twice as fast, while still holding on B after tapping 2, if you tap A, which is the adjacent button, it will then double the setting you just entered. 4 times, 8 times, like that. And if I want to go slower by an amount, I go A to go slower, 1, 2, and then I press B, 4 times slower, 8 times slower, 16 times slower. Come on out. There you are. So In this way, you can actually program up to 32 times faster and slower in a lot more convenient manner, to be frank. Pretty sweet. Mutes. So I just want to recap that mute thing. To mute, we push A, and when A is lit up, then you can toggle channels on and off in this manner. One at a time, all at once, and so forth. Simples. Phase. Astute watchers might say that all this tapping, all of this going a bit faster, going a bit slower, this is all very well and good, but what about phase? Can I slip channels so that they're running at the rates that I've set, but I slip them so we can get syncopated things going on? Yes, you can do that. And the way that we do phase is thus. So I'll get our channels back. Perhaps I will go B, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'll nudge this up a little bit. So you can hear our kind of snare, kind of snary clap thing, which is nicely on the kind of 2 and 4. But if we want to slip the phase, we do it like this. You push A and B together. And with A and B together, we're now in phase slippage mode. And all I have to do is then hold channel 2 and nudge B to slip the phase forward, and channel and A to slip the phase back. It's exactly the same keystroke you do when you want to make a channel go slightly faster or slower, holding the channel and pushing B or A, but you just have to have pushed A and B together and they will light up to say you're in phase programming mode. And this really then unlocks the potential for kind of creating rhythms. You can get syncopated things going on by slipping the phase. And then you just push them again to come out of that. Hold A, mute them again. Jumbling stuff up. Another thing that we can do with this device is that we can scramble the channels. We can actually swap the channels around, which is a really fun and gratifying way to just jumble up the various rhythms that you've created and just suddenly inject change and life. It's basically rotating the channels so that what was doing one job is now shifted over to do its job in the adjacent channel and so forth. So if I unmute these things, you hear our rhythm that we've been playing around with. And then in order to do this, in order to mute, I light up A. But in order to do jumbulation, I light up B. And then I push the channels and they turn purple, which is cool. And purple channels are ones that are going to be jumbled when you apply something to the mod input. The mod input is actually a gate input. And isn't it convenient that we have a gate source right here within the Tempi so that I could patch channel 6 into the mod input, comme ça, and then unmute it. Suddenly, channel 6 tells these channels to swap places on the beat, which I determine. And then I can nudge that, speed it up a little bit, make it 3 times faster than the master clock. So channels 2 and 3 are swapping places in a way that is self-patched because it's based on channel 6. And, astute viewer, you might also say, could I not also swap channel 6, which is the channel it is in fact by itself, telling the other channels to change? Yes, I can. Now the channel that is actually telling the other channels to move is itself being moved by the other channels. Move them all. Additional jumbulation. So this is kind of what it's all about. Here I'm going to use the Tempi as the sort of master clock, doing pretty much everything in order to drive forward and create a track using our modular. And what I've got here, if I start to unmute things, is I've got on channel 1 a tip top the 1, just making that sound. On channel 2, I've got a kind of snary sound on another tip top the 1 sampler thing. And then on channel 3, I've got hats from the 808. And then I'm using channels 4 and 5 in order to make a sort of melody. So channel 4 is creating a gate that makes our voice appear, and channel 5 is driving various things. It's actually advancing the Turing machine that's creating the melody, and it's quantizing the quantizer. It's telling the quantizer when to grab the music thing, Turing machine, and then channel 6 is the kick drum. That's the Jove. So you see, it's nice. I've got the Tempi kind of doing a little bit of everything, which I've set up, taken a bit of time and kind of found some nice kind of vibes. But let's do some jumbulation. So if I was to take perhaps a couple of elements. So if I hold B and it lights up, now I'm able to select in purple the things I want to swap. And it's self-patched so that channel 6, that kick drum, channel 6 will tell the rest of it to change. There are various modes in the machine to determine what happens when you jumble up. You can kind of randomize or have a kind of rotate, which is what I've got going on here. Jumble the signal that causes the jumbling, which gets intense. So yeah, you can see it really lends itself to being this kind of master clock with just this nice intuitive programming method, and that you can jumble things up in that way. You can self-patch it, in fact, to jumble things up. But there's more that we can do, and let's look at that. Jumbulation of states. So up to this point, we've been jumbling stuff just kind of within the same state. We've made a load of cool clocks, and we've pushed B, we've made them go purple in order to cycle between them by sending a gate into the mod. When you send a gate into the mod, it flips between them. But this isn't the only way that you can jumble things up in the Tempi. In fact, there is a much more powerful and profound way to jumble things up, and that is with states. So a state is just the state of everything that's going on in the Tempi at any one time. Oh, I can move on to the next state and come back to the old one. Do you see the potential here? So what I did was I can move into another state and come back. So perhaps, actually, what would be much more cool is if I copied the current state into a new slot, modified it, and then jump between the two things. In doing so, I would create this kind of evolution. It's exactly what you would do in, a DAW, like Ableton Live, where you'd make a copy of all your clips and you kind of rejigger everything, change the inherent tune, and then flip between the two. It's how we make music in a DAW, and you can do the similar sort of thing in the Tempi. The way that I copy a state is I push A and B together to get in kind of state edit, and I'm going to unmute them and go channel 4 to go copy, move to this new state, this kind of empty, boring state, and then I'm going to hold them both together and press channel 5 to paste. Oh, check that out. Now when I flip between the two, I have the same state going on, but I don't want the same state. Let's increase those hats. So B to go faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm turning this little state dial and I'm getting this lovely thing where my hats go real fast. And then they go to the state previously that I had. So what would be lovely would be to flip between that, and like I'm Richard Devine. And in this instance, if I plug the pulse output from the music thing touring machine into this, and then select the last state I want it to be able to access. Oh yeah. Like a nutty little fruit, it's going to step between these two states that I have currently created. And if I push either A or B to access mutes, then it will actually hold that state. So you can kind of interact with it while it's live. So by programming states where things are divided and multiplied, you can create this push-pull kind of slow-fast thing. It's pretty rad. Perhaps if I take the CV out here. So the CV out from the verb could program the changing. That's pretty intense. So very smart. It's a really, really neat way of creating that kind of slow fast thing that's super fun to do with clock dividers and multipliers by setting up multiple states. Now, did you remember before I said mutate? So you can mutate a state, which is where it just goes weird. So for example, if I hold A and B to access the state programming mode, first I hold channel 4 to copy the current state, and then I press channel 6, and that will mutate. Mutate again. Weird. Slow and fast. Cardigan. Mute. Tempi. Clever thing. From such a simple thing, with a few keystrokes, you can really jumble things up. Ace.